everyone, my name is Theba Jacob, and this week for week 7, we're going to talk about social relations part 2, and the topic for this week is aggressions. We have 4 readings this week for week 7, which is chapter 11, aggression in the social psychology book. We had chapter 11 about symbolic interactionism in the theory in social psychology. We had 2 articles that we also have to read, which is the subject, socioeconomic status causes aggression, and a test of a theory of social deprivation. And lastly, it was the parenting behavior and the risk of becoming a victim and a bully and victim of meta-analysis study. So this is what the reading is for this week. For the table of contents is what is aggression, cultural, gender, and individual differences, origins of aggression, influence of aggressions, and media effects, and reducing aggression and violence. What is aggression? Aggression is a behavior tended to harm another individual, and there are many forms of aggression. For example, there are 2 that I put in this presentation, which is the first one is the proactive aggression. It is when aggression is in which harm inflicted as a meaning to desire ends is called proactive aggression. For example, it is a dog attacking someone that is just walking past their owner's property, which the dog is showing aggression because they don't know who that person is, but also they desire to attack because they are on their owner's property. The next aggression is reactive aggression, which is aggression behavior where the means of an end and harm inflicted of its own sake. For example, is an adolescent or child at school hitting their peers because they were teased. So this causes the child to act in an aggressive way because it affected them. Next, culture, gender, and individual differences. So the form of violence is typically it takes a person's attitude towards various kinds of aggressions, and also it differs in different cultures. That is shown in different readings this week, and you'll go through them. For example, men actually are more likely to commit crimes and violence than women. And in culture differences, this leads to different attitudes and behaviors between men and women. Another thing is that the experience of related deprivation affects aggressive behaviors, affects behaviors. Also, emotional reaction turns into a evoke of aggression and violent activities. So therefore, in different genders where you see is men are more likely to commit more crimes and violence and show more aggressive behavior than women can be in different cultures. The origin of aggressions is caused by human interactions through human history and around the world. It also causes by the involvement of mechanisms and environmental and social factors. So it happens through what is also called our social influences that causes these things. Also, it comes from patterns and comes from where it starts, and it also causes by genes, hormones, and to the brain. So for example, here it is written, researchers also conduct studies of adopted children, and also the adopted children resemble more of their biological parents more than they resemble their adopted parents. So each of the traits that comes, it could also be caused by their biological parents. Also, low levels of serotonin in human nervous systems and many animals are associated with high levels of aggressions. So it shows that if there's a low level of serotonin in humans, especially in the nervous system, it also causes aggression. In the cognitive ability, and which causes people to map out and also plan and inhibit these actions. So because of our cognitive behaviors, it causes people to have these actions. Influences of aggression. So there are different forms of aggression, which is self-action, peers, and acquaintances. And the meaning about this is that it goes through who we are as a person and what we go mentally and physically, and our peers, which has a bigger impact because of people surrounded with, and acquaintances that we may see or we may not be able to see them on a day-to-day basis, but we actually know who they are. It also shows by our relations, especially close relations. This could be our family, which is parents, it could be spouses, it could be partners, and it also can be best friends. Also, there are various types of aggression, which is bullying, abuse, verbal, and violence, which shows that victims of bullying are repeatedly exposed to aggressive by individuals or peer groups with more power than the victims. It also shows that it also goes from our self and our self way of how we identify who we are, and also what goes through our central from the social actions. It also means that people are assigned to their sexual identities and their behaviors and emotions. Media effects is one of the most important things. It's because it affects us mentally and physically because of the changes of social influences. It also causes an exposure to violence in media, including television, movies, music, and video games that represent significant risks to children and adolescents' health. This also shows that it also desensitizes violence and also nightmares and fears of being harmed. For example, it could also be by playing video games. If a child plays video games 24/7 or even 2-3 hours, and they get desensitized by seeing people, like, for example, like Call of Duty, other violent video games that causes this. And this also causes where they're shown from events that's how kids can change, and this is why they get bullied, and they're also victims by this. Also, bullying also influences through media. The reduce of aggression and violence is because the lack of empathy that also shows enormous forms of aggressions and violences, which can be bullying, sexual assault, and abuse of animals. There are 4 types of interventions that can help cause or reduce the aggression and violence, which is the cognitive reappraisals, the cognitive controls, the mindfulness, and the self-control trainings. This also shows that even anti-bullying programs can also help reduce negative behaviors. And also multi-systematic therapies that also addresses problems with individuals in different levels. It could be through like moderate to severe levels that can also help them with therapy that helps them with family, with peer groups, schools, and neighbors. And it can help with a group of children in schools to prevent bullying, which is also the anti-bullying program. So in conclusion, is that aggression has many risks, and it impacts adolescents, family, friends, and people we surround with. And aggression connects to violence, bullying, and negative behaviors, which is also shown throughout the whole presentation, that it causes people to harm people, well, even if they're aware or even not even aware of this, they have aggression. Also, culture, gender, origin, media, and influence have created aggression and can be prevented by us. The studies in aggression show that behavior of nonverbal, verbal, and action shows the relationship between others. These are the references. So these are the 4 readings that we had, and I've included it throughout the presentation. So the questions for this week is 1. Can you name a video game or movies that show aggression or violence? How does this affect people considering today's current events? Question 2. In the Bible, Genesis chapter 6, verse 11 to 13, God talks about violence. Now the earth was corrupted in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw how corrupted the earth had become, for all people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. What was God's purpose to the end of violence, according to the Bible verse, and how is this related to the presentation? Thank you so much for watching this presentation, and I hope that this presentation helped and I opened many things, and I hope that these questions are very good, and I hope we can answer them. Thank you.